Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's webinar brought to you by New Hampshire Farm to School and the New Hampshire School and Youth Garden Network. My name is Stacey Purslow and I coordinate the New Hampshire Farm to School program as well as facilitate the New Hampshire School and Youth Garden Network. So this afternoon's webinar is about the new New Hampshire Harvest of the Month program materials. New Hampshire Harvest of the Month has been around for a number of years and decided it needed a little facelift. So we've been working on redeveloping it over the past year and are slowly launching it sort of month by month. As we get monthly materials done, they are on our website. But first, because there's so few of us, I'd love to everybody to introduce themselves, and I'll just call on you to make it more efficient. If you don't mind, you don't have to do your video if you don't want to, but say your name and the organization or school or whatever why you're here today. And I'm going to start with somebody who's looking at me, Marissa, who I do not know.
Hi, my name's Marissa Maggi, and I'm currently in a little bit of a career transition. Last year, I worked for a couple of years ago, I've worked for the Village School in Boylston, Massachusetts, and I worked on a really cool program called the Pollinator Program, which was a grant-funded project where we developed pollinator and native plants curriculums to be shared with local schools. So I'm home with my daughter and trying to find other interesting ways that schools are sharing different farm to table and garden curriculum.
Great. And so you're in Massachusetts?
I live in Keene, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay. Lots of stuff going on out there. How about Alicia?
Hi there. My name's Alicia. I run a food service program for Rochester Childcare. We're a nonprofit organization. We're trying to up our game and get into this farm to preschool and use our resources in the town. We're hitting so many walls with information. So I figure any information is good. So that's what bring me here.
Oh, thanks, Alicia. So I live in Rochester, so I'm zooming in from over by the hospital. But I did hear that you guys applied to attend the Northeast Farm to School Institute up in Burlington, Vermont.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
great.
I've been hitting my head against a wall for 2 years trying to figure this grant out, and we finally got some help with it. So it's opened a lot of doors. So we're looking forward to hopefully going to that.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get there. Um, let's see. How about Laura?
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Alamayu. I am a field specialist here with UNH Extension, and I kind of oversee all of our youth and school-related nutrition education efforts.
Thanks. I'm going to go to Carlene.
Hey, I'm Carlene, and I'm from Berlin Elementary School, and I am here because we are doing the Harvest of the Month. So I want to know about the new and improved version.
Exactly. Great. Thanks. How about Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Nelson. I'm the program manager at the Farm to School program with Food Connects in Brattleboro, and we have a long-standing relationship in various ways, even much prior to my time with New Hampshire Farm to School and Harvest of the Month. And so we're holding the Vermont Harvest of the Month program for the state of Vermont. And so I'm just always just kind of curious and paying attention and just curious about the different kinds of developments and admiring and all of that. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so Food Connects in particular, Tom was part of our sort of planning this program. So thanks for that support from Food Connects. How about Megan?
Howdy, Megan with UNH Extension. I am a teacher for their Nutrition Connections program.
Let's see, Lisa.
Everyone, my name's Lisa Ford. I'm also with UNH Extension. I am an extension teacher in Grafton County. So in the past, I have taught Harvest of the Month, and I'm curious to see what's new and exciting with the updates.
Awesome. And with that, I'll go to Amy.
Just hit us all at once. Yeah. So I'm Amy. I'm the director for UNH Extension Staff Ed. We are big supporters of Harvest of the Month, and I want to, along with Laura, support implementation of the new curriculum statewide. Through our teachers, mass wellness volunteers, we're working on increasing capacity. And Alicia, who is on the call, I think you're in New Hampshire. We have Kate Graves on our team. You can reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat, who's working on supporting Farm to ECE along with Stacey in New Hampshire, and might have some resources to share with you all. So that's it.
Thanks, Amy. Bridget.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bridget, and I'm program specialist with the New Hampshire Education Department with the Office of Nutrition and Program Services. So we administer the USDA Child Nutrition Programs, the National School Lunch Program, Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. And I am the farm to school specialist, so looking forward to working with schools on their farm to school efforts, including Harvest of the Month. Thanks.
Thanks, Bridget. Thanks for being here. And Cam.
Hey, I'm Cam Huffsland. I work for Vital Communities. So I work in the Upper Valley region of Vermont and New Hampshire. And I'm here because a colleague of mine and I are working on developing a pilot project for a couple ECE centers in the Upper Valley that are interested in increasing their meal programs and specifically trying to kind of look to sourcing more locally to do that. So we're still nailing down what the best way to support those ECE centers is, whether that's providing infrastructure updates, so increased refrigeration space, prep space, whether it's trying to assist with some of the paperwork for reimbursement programs for meals, or connecting them more directly to local farmers and helping with the logistics there. I don't do as much with the farm to school stuff. I just mostly, that's the program I'm most tapped in on, but I am filling in a little bit for my coworker as she onboards, taking over all of the farm to school stuff from a colleague of ours that left in the fall. So excited to learn new things.
Yeah, I'll be excited to connect to that person someday soon. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. So we're going to talk about the New Hampshire Harvest of the Month program. So this is what the old materials looked like, and some of you with extension might have seen some of these slides already, but I'm sorry. There'll be a little bit more information. We're going to do the same quiz, so no cheating, plus another quiz. So anyway, this is what the old materials look like that you may have used. But we decided to revamp the program. It needed some new life to it. It had been sort of the same thing for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And so we wanted to make it more culturally relevant, to acknowledge the diversity that the state of New Hampshire has, not only in its people that live here and the food that is grown and that we all eat. So we want to use the program to celebrate the different foods of the different cultures of the people that live here and use it as an educational tool for teachers, students, and others. We had other other partners when we were developing materials, including higher education, hospitals, and the New Hampshire Food Bank and all of the food pantries they represent. So these materials will be used by all of those in not just K through 12 schools. So we wanted to make it a real useful educational tool for anybody that wants to use it. So I just wanted to share a little bit about refugees and immigrants and why we have such a diversity in New Hampshire, and all states have diversity. A lot maybe in part to the US Refugee Admissions Program, which has been around for a while. I don't know what year it started, but it's a refugee resettlement program. So usually a refugee, something's going on in their country that they live in, whether it's war, political unrest, a natural disaster, something that makes it a real challenge to actually live a life, and make, forward progress on your life. So there's a whole, our Department of State runs our refugee admissions program. Um, so it's a whole, you have to apply to become, go through background checks and all these kinds of things before you can actually get here. But every year, the US brings in refugees from all over the world. In fiscal year 2023, 125,000 refugees came into the United States. These are the areas of the world where they came from, mostly from Africa, East Asia, Europe, all over the world. And then they have this unallocated reserve, whether they use it or not, but can apply it to wherever maybe there needs to be extra help. So it's a program that's been around a while. You can go to the Department of State and find out all of the information you ever want to know, including some up-to-date information that I'm going to share with you in a slide or two about the program. So in fiscal year 21, the United States, so on the left-hand table, you can see how many individuals came into the United States and what countries they were from. So you might see some of these countries and say, oh yeah, I've heard about them in the news, or they're in the news now, or there's a war there, or something of terrorism over here. Big earthquake over there. So these are the kinds of thing that drives the need for relocation. And these are the countries where people are coming from. And then on the table on the right is, so we're not the only country that brings in refugees. Countries all over the world resettle refugees. We are definitely the largest country, but all of these other countries also participate in a similar program. So this is really recent data. This is from October to December of 2023, so really just last month. New Hampshire brought in, resettled 59 refugees. You can see where they're from: Afghanistan, Cuba, Democratic Republic of Congo, Honduras, Iraq, and Senegal. And that was just in a 3-month period. So most of the refugees are relocated to Manchester, Nashua, and Concord. And if you live, work, teach, you will see the diversity in the community and in the schools. And they go to these places because there are services there that can help them once they're like, now I live in Manchester, and these are the support organizations that they need are located in these cities. Doesn't mean they all eventually stay there, because they don't have to. They live in the United States now. They can live wherever they want. But many of them do. And so this is just the last 3 months. And the next, by the end of March or early May, we'll have data for the first 3 months of this year about how many came in and what countries they were from. So that information, that data I just showed you is sort of driving the countries that are going to be represented or try to be represented in our Harvest of the Month materials. So these countries on the left are where most of the New Hampshire refugees are coming from. Doesn't mean all. We saw there was Senegal and Cuba on the list before. But generally, these countries on the left represent the highest numbers of refugees. in New Hampshire. And I will say, like Indonesia and India, they're more of an immigrants versus refugees. And then on the right, these are the new calendar items for the foods. Some of they're same, some have been changed. So we're ending parsnip, dry bean, pulses, and legume month. And then February, carrots and beef. It used to be cabbage. We took cabbage out and now it's carrots and beef. We're adding proteins in. So those are sprinkled throughout the year. And some months have even up to 3 items just because those are the highly productive food months for the state of New Hampshire. So there's lots of variety of food available, generally July through October. So we tried to be more broad in what we're offering. That way, if you're a food service person and, maybe this year you want to focus on kale, next year you want to focus on apples, or, just so you have a little bit more flexibility in the program materials. And particularly if you're buying something locally, maybe you can get something a little bit easier than something else. So you might want to make a choice that way. So the materials are also going to include some stories, and this is just a story of an interview I did from a woman who's originally from Nepal, but is a refugee. She's been in the US, I think, about 6 years or so. So the reason that she's here is because although she's Nepalese, but she was living in Bhutan. And so the Bhutanese government, with the increasing Nepalese population there, felt very threatened that they were going to somehow lose their identity as Bhutan. So they developed this policy that was meant to preserve Bhutanese culture and therefore did not recognize the people of Nepal. But the people of Nepal were still living and working there. And so they wouldn't grant citizenship to the people who are from Nepal, but living and working in Bhutan. So conflict escalated because the Nepalese people were not being acknowledged. And so some conflict has happened there. So the people who are from Nepal living in Bhutan who wanted to move back to Nepal were also not able to do that because now the Nepalese government sees them as Bhutanese refugees and not citizens of Nepal. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated. So that's just a very brief getting the information from her. So she and her daughter were living in a refugee camp in tents in Nepal. And, how do you live your life if you live in a tent in a refugee camp? Like you're just surviving day to day and that's it. And she didn't want that. And she definitely didn't want that for her daughter. And I will say, her husband is in jail in Bhutan. A lot of Bhutanese who were speaking out against, the Nepalese who were speaking out against the Bhutanese government were imprisoned. So her husband is still in jail in Bhutan, and so there's nothing much she can do with that. I think she's tried, but so she and her daughter came over here, relocated to New Hampshire. Have been here for about 6 years. Her daughter's a student at Concord High School, and has aspirations beyond high school to get some sort of training or college degree, which I don't think she would have been able to do if they had stayed where they were. So I met her, Hema, at the gardens, the Sycamore Community Garden in Concord, which is near the campus of NHTI. And she's been gardening there for a number of years. So she showed me what she was growing. So that particular garden community, a lot of refugees and immigrants have garden plots there. They can grow things that are important to their culture and their cuisine that they can't get at the supermarket. So she's growing hot peppers and pumpkin and special cucumbers and long beans, marigolds, mustard greens, tomatoes. So she, those are all some traditional foods that they are used to growing and eating. And now with the garden, they can do that. So it's an interesting story. Interesting to meet her. She's stable right now. She has an apartment, she has a car, she has a job, her daughter's in school. So, access to these things that, she might not have had she stayed in Bhutan or Nepal. So there'll be some stories like this as part of program materials. So these are what the new program materials look like. So these are some of the posters. As you can see, we're trying to fit a lot in each month and a lot of varieties each month. So it's not just, like the radishes, for instance, we usually are eating the red brown radishes. If you go to a farmer's market, you might be able to find some of these other kinds, and the daikon radish, which can be hard to find, but it's popularly used in a lot of Asian cuisine. And onions, all the kinds of onions. Onions are eaten around the world. So trying to incorporate not only different varieties of food, but different varieties of food within each food. So it's not just the normal, red radish that everybody in this country is used to for the most part, but all the varieties of radishes and the other foods. So I'm going to stop sharing right now because I'm going to try to launch one of the fun quizzes. As if we had been meeting in person, I would have done one of the activities in the program, but they're really hands-on kinds of things, so I can't really do it over Zoom. So had to adapt. So in the chat, there's a link to a Slido quiz. Okay, I know. So you have to join. And then can you all see if you've joined can you see the quiz? I can't see it, so you have to, I can only see the back end.
I can see it. It's running though, I think, for me.
It's running. It does have a timer on it.
It looks like it ran the first question for me.
Okay. All right. All right. Should see the second question. Do you guys, okay. Those who are
Yeah.
playing. All right. All right. Ooh, everybody got that one right. You all remember this from the last one, don't you?
I just really like Ethiopian food.
All right. All right, let's see. I have Amy 6 for 7, Cam 4 for 7, Megan 3 for 7. Everyone else 2 for 7. So you're gonna have to use these Harvest of the Month materials, I can see. All right. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so back to what the program materials look like. Here's January with parsnips. It always was parsnips, but we've added beans, pulses, and legumes. Because those are, you can find those dried year round, so it's a good item for January in New Hampshire. December, sweet potatoes, pork, potatoes. I don't know how people feel about like the bacon and pork chops on the calendars. It's like a conversation about, do we, you know, just put a pig or just do the pig products too? So, and then some of the other resources that each food item will have. So this at-home resource is really meant for if you want to send something home with students to the families. If the people at the food pantry want to send something home to clients that visit food pantries. If the hospital wants to send something home with a patient, you know, it's that kind of thing. So each food item will have something that looks like this. You'll learn a little bit about apples. You'll learn how to store, buy, cook, some mini activities and things. And then there'll be 2 or 3 recipes for each food item, trying to incorporate, again, those different countries that we talked about. So this is an Afghan apple jam recipe, which sounds like apple jam, only with the addition of cardamom and almonds in it, which makes it from Afghanistan. So alliums at home, kind of the same thing, some information about alliums, how other countries use onions and alliums, cooking, storage, recipes. Here's more recipes for alliums. And then each month we'll have a harvest lesson associated with one of the food items. I was working with UNH education students, those students that are studying to be teachers, to help have them develop some of this. So they developed for one thing each month. So I'm hoping I can loop them in, like next school year to do another round. So eventually there'll be harvest lessons for each food item, but right now there's only for one of the food items. So, so this is February around carrots and beets. and then the lessons that the students come up with. And then this month, harvest lessons for pulses, legumes, and beans, growing beans in the classroom. So it'll be there's a whole, 12-page, lesson plans for each food item. So the final monthly materials will have the posters, harvest lessons, harvest at home, videos, refugee and immigrant stories, recipes from various countries for institutional food service and home, recommended kids books. And then we're going to have some of the materials translated. I think particularly the at-home handouts. They'll at least be Spanish and French because those are the top 2 foreign languages spoken in New Hampshire. And then probably a few other languages at some point. So it's just a matter of, it is a little pricey to get all of these things translated. So at least Spanish and French this year, and then maybe a couple other languages next year. So I wanted to go over some of I'm going to share my screen again. 1 second. I don't have any technology support today. Share my screen again. So you can go to the New Hampshire Farm to School website. And if you go to resources, scroll down, harvest calendars. And then this is the harvest of the month. And then there's also the Indigenous harvest calendar, which we created several years ago for Foods of the Abenaki. But if you go New Hampshire harvest of the month, it'll bring you to this page. And then you can just go to whatever month you want to find resources for. If you go to January, it'll bring you here. So you could, you can download and print the poster if you wanted to. You could just get a poster of parsnips, or you can just get a poster of beans, or you can get them both together. So depending if you're featuring both or just one item. And then if you want to explore the harvest, say for the beans, pulses, and legumes, you'd end up here. And scroll down and you can find the home kit, the poster, videos, cooking with beans, pulses, and legumes, books, the lesson plan, and then recipes. So home recipes. And then the middle one is for school and institutional food service, meaning they're larger quantities, like feeding 50 to 100 portions of that food. And they all fit into the National School Lunch Program meal guidelines. Because they're either from the USDA meal database or the Institute of Child Nutrition or other places where these meet school lunch guidelines. And then if you wanted to find beans, pulses, and legumes in New Hampshire, you could go to these different sources. We don't grow too many dried beans, pulses, and legumes in the state. There's not a lot of farmers who do that. You're more likely to get the fresh, like green beans and things, versus a dried bean product. But a few places carry locally sourced and grown beans. And then let me just see, if you were to click on, if you want to click on the download here, harvest lessons, you would come here. That's where the link would take you. And you can see there's a 16-page document that you could download or just use off your computer. So that's for each month. I also wanted to share this website. It's the northeastfarmtoschool.org. So I worked with other states because the other states were considering doing some of the same things with their Harvest of the Month programs, trying to make it more, build in more diversity into their programs. So each state has been doing something. Connecticut has been working on developing some relationships with their indigenous communities in the state and have a new, indigenous foods calendar for Connecticut. Maine has done a teacher guide. If you're doing, food education in your classrooms, there's an equity and farm to school guide for food-based education that you can access, as well as Wabanaki Foods in Maine schools. It's part of their Harvest of the Month program. Massachusetts has this tasting history project out of the Lowell School District where they're having students, participate in their families and their culture and their background, and learning more about the students and where they come from. So it's a really interesting model that you can look at and duplicate if that was something you were interested in doing in your school district. So New Hampshire, right, we have what I just showed you, and then they're also going to link the Indigenous Harvest Calendar here as well. And Vermont is doing something similar that we have done with our Harvest of the Month program, just making it more culturally diverse and relevant. And if you wanted to watch this video, it was a workshop that we did last spring as part of a larger conference. So those are the materials. If anyone has any questions, I do have another quiz for you to try. Let's see, hold on. All right, so this one is country identification quiz. So you have to do the same thing. I think you have to go to the link and put your name in or whatever. All right, I'm gonna start question 1. All right. I think you all 100% picked the correct answer. Nepal. All right, the correct answer is Afghanistan. Great. Correct answer is Guatemala. All right, the correct answer is Somalia. All right, yeah, you all got that right. Indonesia. All right. So that was a fun little quiz. Um, does anyone have any questions that I can answer about the Harvest of the Month materials? One thing I do now that I have some extension folks on here too is, and because I know you want to be able to use the materials in the classroom, whether you've looked at the harvest lessons, and if they're something that you can use. But other questions, please ask too.
I'll let Laura take that one. I have not looked at them.
Okay. She hasn't looked at the final materials yet. Yeah, so I'm not a teacher and I'm not going into classrooms and teaching, so just want to make sure that these are usable. And if they need some adapting, we can talk about that too.
Yeah, thanks. We'll definitely be doing like a training this summer, like to get ready for the next school year. And
Okay.
Laura will work on evaluation and alignment and all that, but definitely planning. I know some people were like, I want to start using them immediately. I don't know where that landed, but I know Laura and I have talked about getting them ready for the next school year for sure for everyone.
Yeah, I know Ziani was anxious to use them. I don't know if
I think
anyone.
Joy too. I think Joy
Okay.
was like really excited.
Okay. Yeah, so again, if they're not, all the materials aren't quite up there. We're doing month to month because I'm creating the at-home ones, and the educational ones are there, but they have to be put into the template. And anyway, so it's a bit of a process to get it all done, so. And Cam, there is some farm to ECE, like Harvest of the Month materials that was created by New Hampshire DOE a couple years ago. I don't know if you've seen that at all.
I don't think I have. I'm still like pretty
All right.
pretty new to the scene with that.
All right. Let me see if I. Um, we do have some resources. I'll just put it in the chat for the ECE folks. But I see we don't have the Farm to Early Child Care Harvest of the Month up yet, but we can do that. It was something because the meal pattern is a little bit different for early child care, so materials were around that and the nutrition requirements. So it was more focused on a early child care meal and classroom, cafeteria setting versus K-12. But I'm happy to, I do have them. They're just not up on the website yet, but if you want them, I can get them to you if you think you might find them useful.
Great. Yeah, I'll connect with my coworker Anna about that, and we'll probably reach back out. So
Okay.
thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Stacey, I'll just, as Laura works on everything over the next, like, kind of getting it ready for us to roll out officially for our staff, we'll definitely create some sort of like evaluation, aligned with the SNAP-Ed framework. And we could share that with you if it's the material you wanted to include that, for other people to potentially use, too, because, we'll be using it. And if you don't have to do evaluation, awesome for you, yay. But it might be nice
I'm
since we're
not
making it
required.
anyway. Yeah, but it might be nice since we're making it anyway, we could put it on the site, maybe other people it would be useful for, and if they want
Okay.
to use it, they can.
Sure. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, but feel free to reach out anytime as we continue to get materials on the website, and add other interesting resources. It's fairly adaptable. So if you're like, hey, here's a cool thing, we could, add it as a resource to the materials. So we're trying to do that as best we can without, we don't want to be overwhelming with materials, but just have a good assortment of options for, we have the I was going to say, let me just see. Let me just share my screen one more time. So again, like on the beans, pulses, and legumes, there are links to some other resources, and we can always put more things in like that. So it's pretty easy to do. Oh, I didn't share, but there you go. As you can see, there's some links in here just for the beans, pulses, and legumes. So we're able to put in, add whatever. Okay. Well, feel free to reach out with any questions, or if you're looking for something in particular, or if you've got, a group of students that might be, that we need something for them. I don't know, just with anything, that would be helpful to your work as well. So, okay, I'm gonna stop recording.